It was an emotional day in Canberra for Parliament's first sitting of the year, and not one without controversy. Inside the chamber, business was suspended so MPs could reflect on the Queensland floods. But outside, there were fireworks as Tony Abbott walked into a political minefield over his choice of words to describe the circumstances surrounding the death of an Australian soldier. Channel 7 has broadcast Mr Abbott saying shit happens when discussing the circumstances surrounding the death of Lance Corporal Jared McKinney last August in Afghanistan. Political correspondent Tom Eagleton has more.
A mud-splattered...
A flag dragged from the mud the Queensland floods left behind set the tone for a display of raw emotion from the Prime Minister.
Of what it means to be Australian.
The speech that followed answered criticism she's too controlled and too detached as she told the story of a chopper rescue at the height of the emergency.
In a media report, Mark said, "I looked over my shoulder and I saw her sitting on the floor of the aircraft and she was devastated. It was heartbreaking." What Mark was witnessing was a young pregnant mother who just seconds before the chopper had arrived had her young child wrenched from her weary arms by the floodwaters.
Whatever political disagreements we might have, she has shown a decent heart. We can scarcely imagine the horror of having a loved one plucked from your arms.
Scott Buckholtz represents the people of the hard-hit Lockyer Valley and was the most emotional.
There were people in the community that weren't able to be saved.
The mutually agreed ceasefire inside the House didn't extend beyond its doors. Tony Abbott's trying to pressure the government into dropping the flood levy by suggesting deeper budget cuts instead, and today he listed them. The biggest, deferring water buybacks along the Murray-Darling River, worth $600 million. $500 million would come from further cuts to subsidies to the car industry, but reportedly the most controversial in the Liberal Party room, another $500 million cut to a program to build and repair thousands of schools in Indonesia.
With so many schools destroyed or damaged in Australia, we do think that charity begins at home.
Aid groups worry Tony Abbott's abandoning his commitment to increase overseas aid funding.
It's hitting people that are the poorest in the world. That seems to me a race to the bottom.
The program was originally John Howard's idea, but Tony Abbott says he wants more evidence it's working. The government says there's already proof it is.
We have had two sets of evaluation reports commissioned into it as to whether the program is reaching its objectives or not. Both of those evaluations have come out positive. Foreign Minister Downer, when he was in office, said this was an effective means by which to prosecute de-radicalisation in the Islamic world. And that's why this Australian government has not only in the past supported this Howard government initiative, but we've elected to continue it.
And there was another minefield awaiting Tony Abbott's first day in Parliament. Footage obtained by Channel 7 through a Freedom of Information request of the opposition leader in Afghanistan last year. Here he's talking with a senior American commander about a firefight that claimed the life of Australian Lance Corporal Jared McKinney. The American commander responds to criticism the Lance Corporal's platoon wasn't properly supported, pointing out the military hardware available on the ground. Mr Abbott then responds. Channel 7 confronted Mr Abbott with the footage earlier this evening.
Yeah, look, you've taken this out of context.
OK, well, tell me, what's the context? And if it's out of context, what is the context? You're not saying anything, Tony.
Tony Abbott says he's spoken by telephone tonight with Lance Corporal McKinney's widow, Becky, explained his remarks and there are no issues between them. Whatever the context in which he used the phrase, he's certainly no stranger to the words themselves.
Not to put too fine a point on it, shit happens, Tony.
I regret swearing on Lateline last night.
Shit happens.
Senior Liberals say they're not concerned about the stare-off between Mr Abbott and the Channel 7 journalist.
There's nothing confected about Tony Abbott. He doesn't stage manage things for the media. He is a real person.
Question time resumes in the House tomorrow. Tom Eagleton, Lateline.